Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to lesson 2B in level 2 of our Simple Guide to Tajweed series, brought to you by Blossoms of Faith. In today's lesson, we will learn about the first rule of Noon Saakinah and Tanween rules, which is Izhar Halqi, and how we should pronounce it. Izhar Halqi. Izhar linguistically means clear. In Tajweed, it is pronouncing each letter from its point of articulation without prolonged Ghunnah. Is it correct to say without Ghunnah? No, we cannot pronounce letter Noon without Ghunnah, as it is part of the letter. That is why we say without prolonged Ghunnah. Halqi means from the throat, as all the letters that cause Noon Saakinah to be pronounced clear articulate from the throat, al-halq. Letters that cause Noon Saakinah or Noon Saakinah of Tanween to be pronounced clear are Hamza, Ha, Ain, Ha, Ghain, or Kha. The sign of Izhar Halqi in the Quran is the presence of a sukoon sign on the Noon, and the Tanween shape is equal fathas, equal kasras, or a dhamma and an upside down Noon. Izhar Halqi could appear within a word or between two words. So, how do we pronounce Izhar Halqi? In the first example, the Tanween is equal. We split the letter with Tanween into the letter with its haraka, which is ta marbuta with kasra, plus Noon Saakinah. When we check the effect of the following letter on Tanween, we find that letter Kha will cause Noon Saakinah of Tanween to be pronounced clearly, and then we pronounce letter Kha with Fatha. So we pronounce it as
ذرة خيرا ذرة خيرا.
In the second example, we have Noon Saakinah with sukoon sign on it. When we check the effect of the following letter on Noon Saakinah, we find that Ain causes the Noon Saakinah to be pronounced clear. So we pronounce the letter Alif before the Noon Saakinah, then we pronounce Noon Saakinah clearly, and then we pronounce letter Ain with Fatha.
أنعمت أنعمت.
Always remember that there are three things that we must pronounce when reading Tanween or Noon Saakinah, as we mentioned in level 1 Tanween lessons. Number 1, the letter with Tanween or the letter before the Noon Saakinah. Number 2, the Noon Saakinah, which in this case is clear due to Izhar Halqi. Number 3, the letter that follows the Tanween or Noon Saakinah, which is what decides which rule we apply to the Tanween or Noon Saakinah and how we will read it accordingly. Let's listen to examples for Noon Saakinah and Tanween followed by these 6 throat letters and see how Sheikh Ahmed will pronounce them. First, we will listen to some examples of Izhar Halqi for Noon Saakinah within a word where the Noon Saakinah is followed by the throat letter in the same word. Make sure to check the presence of sukoon sign on each Noon Saakinah.
ينأون ينأون ينهون ينهون. أنعمت أنعمت. تنحتون تنحتون. فسينغضون فسينغضون. المنخنقة المنخنقة.
Now, let's listen to examples of Izhar Halqi for Noon Saakinah between two words where the Noon Saakinah is at the end of the first word, and the throat letter is at the beginning of the following word. Again, make sure to check the presence of sukoon sign on each noon sakina.
أسكن أنت أسكن أنت من هدى من هدى ولا تحزن عليهم ولا تحزن عليهم لدن حكيم لدن حكيم من غيركم من غيركم من خردل من خردل.
Finally, we will listen to examples of Izhar Halqi for Tanween, which of course can only come in between two words, as Tanween comes at the end of the first word and the throat letter comes at the first letter of the second word. Remember to check the presence of equal Tanween set in each example.
جنات ألفافا جنات ألفافا سلام هي سلام هي أجر عظيم أجر عظيم غفور حليم غفور حليم عفوا غفورا عفوا غفورا ثيابا خضرا ثيابا خضرا.
Here are some pronunciation tips. Listen to how Sheikh Ahmed presents some common mistakes people make when pronouncing Izhar Halqi. The first common mistake is pronouncing Izhar Halqi with prolonged Ghunnah.
واسع عليم واسع عليم.
It should be pronounced with the normal Ghunnah that is already part of letter Noon.
واسع عليم واسع عليم.
The second common mistake is hiding Noon Sakina when followed by one of the throat letters.
عليم خبير عليم خبير.
It should be pronounced clear.
عليم خبير عليم خبير.
When Tanween is followed by Hamzatul Wasl, we can't consider this as any of the Noon Sakina rules, as Noon will no longer be Sakina. It will be assigned a Kasra to avoid reading two second letters following each other, as we explained in details in level 1 Hamzatul Wasl video number 9C.
خيرا الوصية خيرا الوصية خير اطمأن خير اطمأن.
Thank you for listening, and see you next time where we will have a practice lesson on Izhar Halqi rule. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.